of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Person?
Here.
Ms. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Here.
Mr. Taylor? Mr. Pavoni?
Here.
Ms. Breyer? Mr. Prince?
Here.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, 2 absent.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
move the 2 absent council members be excused.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that council excuse council members Taylor and Breyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. First item on the agenda is a proclamation.
A proclamation. Whereas September has been designated by the President of the United States of America and the Governor of the State of Washington as National Preparedness Month and coincides with the City of Renton's Ready in Renton Emergency Preparedness Campaign, and whereas the City of Renton has experienced natural and human-caused disasters in the past, and scientific evidence indicates the city and the region remain vulnerable to disasters in the future, and whereas investing in the preparedness of ourselves, our families, our businesses, and our communities can reduce fatalities and economic devastation in our region and in our nation, and whereas the basic steps of emergency preparedness are the same for everyone, make a plan, build a kit, and help each other, and whereas staying informed is a vital part of responding appropriately to emergencies, and all Renton citizens are encouraged to participate in citizen preparedness activities and to review the Ready in Renton campaign materials at rentonwa.gov, and whereas Ready in Renton creates an important opportunity for every resident of the City of Renton to prepare their homes, businesses, and community for any type of emergency, and whereas this year, the city seeks to reach out to the culturally diverse communities to encourage participation and preparedness. Now therefore, I, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2014 to be Ready in Renton Month in the City of Renton, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Renton to be affixed this 8th day of August 2014. Signed, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the proclamation be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Corman, that this proclamation be adopted as read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And it's my pleasure to present this to Deborah Needham, who is the city's Emergency Management Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I want to thank you for recognizing this month once again. We do this every year, and sometimes people think, well, do you have anything new to say? And I think the fire that we had in Renton in July really reminded people of how emergencies can happen at any time and with no warning whatsoever. So a lot of people experienced having to evacuate on sudden notice, and many people were not ready. And so National Preparedness Month and Ready in Renton Month is all about being prepared at any time for any emergency. We are doing a special emphasis this year again, reaching out to our culturally diverse communities, because we recognize that the messaging that we get out there doesn't reach everybody equally, and we're seeking to bridge that gap. So we are conducting a special survey. Jillian Edge, who is our AmeriCorps volunteer for the year, she's returning with us for another year, and she's conducting a survey to see how people communicate, and she's conducting that survey in several languages. So if people are interested in participating, I want to encourage them to contact our office and contact Jillian. She's available at 425-430-7054. We would love to hear from people who'd like to participate in that survey, and we can improve our messaging to our entire community. Thank you again for recognizing this month.
Thank you, Deb. Okay, now we have a very special presentation. Chief Peterson.
Members of council, it just brings me pleasure to come before you tonight. And this is a special night. Back in June 30th, we had a dramatic rescue at Jean Coulon Park. And it was a rescue that involved both the lifeguards at Coulon Park and our new program that we just put in place this year called the Rescue Swimmer Program. In the Rescue Swimmer Program, these folks just got through their training about 2 weeks before, and this program really proved to be invaluable. So tonight, we're recognizing Coulon Guard Shane Thompson, who's unfortunately unable to make it tonight. Something about classes at Wazoo. Amanda Monson, Dolan Connell, Dave Moser, along with firefighters Patrick Stallmaker, Marcus Ristmiller, and Tom Sowards, for their actions for the rescue of 2 kids who got in trouble and went underwater in a non-swim area at Coulon Beach. Can I have you folks step forward, please? So the evening started out with Amanda and Shane on a training run. So they were running from the guard shack up towards where the restaurants are up there, and once they got up past the restaurant in that one area, they noticed a couple of swimmers in distress. So while running past that area, they noticed the swimmers, and they immediately entered the water and swam to rescue them. As they were running to help, another bystander jumped into the water, and Amanda immediately got him out of the water. Otherwise, we would have 3 victims at the time. One of the swimmers was approximately 25 yards offshore, and the other about 35 yards. Both swimmers went under the water about the same time as lifeguards approached them in the water. Shane was able to dive down and reach his swimmer as the victim was only 3 to 4 feet underwater and towed him to shore. Amanda was having to swim out an additional 10 yards and conducted pop dives in about 35 feet of water. But she could not locate the victim. Once Shane got back to help Amanda, she got out of the water and ran to get help from the other guards, so she had to run back to the guard shack. Shane continued the pop dives to try to find this young man. Amanda went and got Dave and Dylan. When they got to the scene, Dave and Dylan entered the water and began diving for the young man. About this time, the fire department arrived with their rescue swimmers. The rescue swimmers made a couple of dives in full mask and found the young man. Dave towed the young man to shore, and the EMTs took over at this point. But here's some of the story, is that the original call was swimmers in trouble at the swim area of the park. So Engine 11, Ladder 11 responded, and they parked over in the boat launch area and ran over towards the swim area. When they found out it was the opposite side of the park, they sprinted over to that side of the park. Normally, you'd be spent. Not only did they sprint, but adrenaline took over, and they ended up diving in. On the second dive, Tom found the victim. But it was a team effort of all these individuals. Firefighters Sowards, Ristmiller, and Stallmaker sprinted over 400 yards and dove with clothing into cold water to rescue a 15-year-old at the depth of 30 feet. It was a team effort by all 3 who applied their recent training to the rescue. They found the boy and swam into medical team in an amazing 8 minutes from the time of arrival. And if you know anything about Lake Washington, it's not really very clear under there. Once on shore, CPR was initiated and he was subsequently transported to Harborview in critical condition. And I found out later that he was transferred to Children's Orthopedic. Again, he's still a very sick boy as we speak. Amanda and Shane's actions were the difference in the successful outcome. They saved the life of the first young man by quickly pulling him out of the water. They saved the life of possibly a third victim of near drowning. And they also gave the second man a possible chance at survival by maintaining that last scene point. That's real critical in a water rescue situation, because a lot of times, depending on your perspective, the place where people see them can be very far off. And so they were able to maintain that. And it was a real team effort by both parks and fire people to really work together seamlessly in order to effect a successful rescue. And I want to give them a hand tonight for their actions. We're going to award them a life-saving certificate for a commendation for their actions, and for the firefighters a valorous unit citation. So can we have Amanda come forward?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
if there's
Person.
any family members that want to take pictures, feel free to come up front and get good pictures.
If you'll offer. Congratulations, Amanda.
Keith, you better do that again.
Okay. Shane? And because Shane isn't here tonight, Brandy's going to accept for Shane. Dave, congratulations.
Photographers, don't be shy. Come right on up here if you need to.
Okay, Eric? Tom, we'll start out with you. According to Tom, he ran 20 miles to get there, but... But yeah, it seemed like it, I'll bet you. Tom?
Absolutely. It's a long way.
Okay. Congratulations. Marcus? Members of the council, if it please, I'd like to have a picture with the council and the rescuers.
Again, members of the audience, if you want to take some pictures, come right on up here and Kelly will help you out.
Your picture frames as mirrors towards me, so try not to have
There
them
aren't as
straight
many
at me.
people.
Oh, yeah. Gotta get in
Our
close.
assigned spots, we kind of,
On the
right.
end. Family, you're also all welcome to come up and stand by me. The best shot will be right about here, so come on over. I'll take a couple quick ones, and then let's just, you guys get to wait, because we have quite the paparazzi. It's gonna take a few minutes. Bear with us. But keep smiling. All right, there, I'm gonna get out of the way and let a few family members get shots. All right, in fact, what I'll do is eyes all here. Let's go eyes here. Take a picture. Eyes here. This works, because otherwise everyone's looking every which way. So are you ready? Eyes here?
They're all cross-eyed.
All right, generally just eyes right here. All right. I'll keep shooting a few more. Family, you good?
Yeah.
Everybody?
Yeah,
All right.
And if you
All
tip
right.
your awards down a little so it doesn't act as a mirror, there you go.
I'm not gonna try again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you, members of the council, for supporting us in both the fire and the parks department, for supporting us in putting some of these programs together. This is just a testament to the people that serve our community and how we work together and how well we work together in order to provide for a safe and livable community. This is just a testament. We've got some young folks here that are up-and-comers. Shane wants to be a firefighter, so that's kind of cool. But again, this is a testament to the type of employees that work for the city of Renton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Well, Preeti, you've got your hands full trying to follow up with a public hearing after that presentation.
I can say it's all about TV.
It's no offense, but the crowd's leaving.
Good evening, Council. For the record, I'm Preeti Sridhar, Deputy Public Affairs Administrator. I'm here today with Mike Bradley. Mike is with the law firm of Bradley, Hagan, and Gullickson. and we're here to present a 10-year franchise agreement with Comcast Cable Television. This is actually a unique cable agreement because this is the first time since 1993 that we're actually creating a new franchise agreement with Comcast. In the past, we've had renewals of the first agreement. As we've been negotiating with Comcast, which has been about a year plus now, since early 2013, a little before we've been negotiating and working with them, it was very important for us to come, as we looked at the details, to make sure that it worked for the residents, the community, the businesses, and the city of Renton. And of course, we had to work closely within the FCC regulations and broader, both state and federal legislative and regulatory environment. We're really pleased with the efforts. We did a thorough analysis of all the other city franchises in the area so that we were starting with, good knowledge and good advantage in terms of what we could ask for and get. And like I said, it's my pleasure to introduce Mike Bradley. Mike Bradley has been working with several cities across the nation and definitely in our area. He's an expert when it comes to cable franchise agreements, and he's been working for the city of Renton since 2005, so he clearly understands what the needs of the city is, what our community is, and so in a very positive place to conduct these negotiations with Comcast.
Well, thank you for that, and good evening, Mayor and members. It is my real pleasure to be up here speaking to you about cable franchising, and I will be the first to admit that cable franchising can be a little boring. But there's some exciting things that result from cable franchising, and I think we just saw one of them just now when we had the rescuers up here with the fire department, and you were able to have all of them come up here. They were all recognized, and they were all on TV being recognized, and it was neat. I don't know if you heard it up there, but one of the younger kids, when his father was awarded that special award, said, "There's Daddy, he's on TV." So it's because of cable franchising that he's on TV. And so anyway, we get some real nice benefits out of cable franchising. As Preeti said, I keep doing this wrong. This is a brand new franchise that we're recommending, and that's the first time this has happened since 1993. We've had the same agreement in place essentially since 1993. We extended that franchise agreement in 2008 and added some new important provisions, and those important provisions have been included in this new franchise. So this is a real nice opportunity to get a modern franchise with Comcast. As Preeti said, I've been working on cable franchising matters throughout almost my entire career, and I've been working with the city here since 2005, and I really do appreciate that. I'm a partner in a law firm in Minneapolis called Bradley, Hagan & Gullickson. I'm also special counsel here to a local municipal law firm called the Lighthouse Law Group, based out of Seattle. So what we did when we started the renewal project here is Preeti and I got together and met with council members, and we met with city staff, and really formulated the basis for what our negotiations would be with Comcast. And once we did that, then we drafted a franchise. We got together with Comcast and started negotiations. So, as I mentioned, this is a modern franchise, and it replaces the 1993 and 2008 franchise ordinances, and it preserves those important provisions that we made in 2008. Some of those provisions are the definition of gross revenues. That definition is important in cable franchise negotiations because it's the basis for which the franchise fee is paid, and that's the consideration that Comcast pays for the privilege of using the city's public rights-of-way. We also had a provision requiring that Comcast provide certifications that its cable system meet all of the FCC technical standards, and that remains as well. One of the other things in 2008 that we did is we took care of a long-standing disagreement on the institutional network, and we were able to secure the Comcast-built institutional network for a period of 35 years. So we'll try to do a very high-level review of the key provisions in this agreement. I know that many of you were at the Committee of the Whole, and so this is going to sound very, very similar to you, and I apologize for that. But for the others, we will try to, we'll go through quickly, and if there's any questions, we're happy to answer them, of course. So Section 1 has definitions. Basically, we modernize the definitions to be current with state and federal law. As I mentioned, the 2008 definition of gross revenues remained. And as a result, we don't expect any change in how Comcast pays franchise fees to the city going forward. The authority is an important authority to Comcast. It gives them the right to use the public rights-of-way in order to provide cable service to our residents here in Renton. The term will be for a period of 10 years. A lot of times you'll get questions about why do you give Comcast a franchise and nobody else? And the answer to that is we'll give a franchise to whoever comes in and applies for one and is qualified to provide cable service in the city. This is not an exclusive franchise for Comcast, and other competitors can come in. I suspect in the next couple of years there will be a competitive cable operator that comes into the city. Competitive equity is another provision that's in this franchise. Basically what that means is we're going to treat Comcast and competitors fairly when it comes to granting an additional franchise here in the city. There's provisions on the construction and maintenance of the system. Basically Comcast has to follow our rules and regulations here that we have on the books here at the city. There's provisions on relocation and right-of-way restoration that Comcast must follow. And we also have a provision that requires Comcast to provide notice to homeowners before entering private property. That's a provision that's not in all franchises, but it's a provision here in our franchise. We think it's a good one. There's service obligations, providing for standard installations to residences. It's actually higher than the minimum federal standards. Again, that's a standard that is better here in Renton than most cities in the Seattle area. There's also a provision for complimentary cable service to government buildings here in the city, as well, not only the service, but also the equipment to receive the service, which is important now because you can't get Comcast service just by plugging in the cable anymore into the TV, as most of you probably know. There are provisions on rate regulation. We reserve our rights to regulate the rates of Comcast. You may get questions about, why don't you do something about the rates here that Comcast is charging? The answer is the city has very little authority to regulate rates. They have, cities across the country have the authority now only to regulate the most basic of cable rates. That's changed over the years. Those of you who were around in the earlier days of cable regulation might remember a time when cities actually did set rates, and that's really not the case anymore. And that's because of changes in federal law over time. There is a requirement that Comcast provide uniform rates throughout the city, and that's an important provision in a cable franchise, especially when there gets to be more than one entrant and there's what they call effective competition. in the city, and there's a rule, a federal rule that requires uniform rates throughout the city, but that law does not apply in areas where there's effective competition. So we have a franchise provision that still requires it. There remains a low-income discount for individuals who are seniors, age 65 and older, or disabled persons. The definition of senior changed from 62 to 65 this year, and that was really to accommodate Comcast requests, because in most all other cities, I think all other cities, it is the age is 65. And so we agreed to accommodate Comcast requests there. There's customer service standards. We incorporate all of the FCC's customer service standards. The consideration, as I've mentioned, is a franchise fee. It's 5% of the gross revenues of Comcast's sales of cable service. There's certain records that Comcast has to provide upon request. If Comcast ever wants to transfer the cable system, it has to get the city's approval in order to do that. I recently thought in the Twin Cities that we would never have a transfer again because Comcast owned the cable systems in the Twin Cities. But they just announced that they are transferring it as part of the Time Warner Cable Comcast deal. So that was a big surprise. So it's an important provision to still have. There's insurance and indemnity provisions, fairly standard, but it protects the city in the event of certain situations from Comcast. There's system description and system facilities provisions, again incorporating FCC standards for their technical requirements. And that's where we have our annual certification that the system is compliant with all applicable law. That is not in most cable franchises in this region, or really anywhere. That was a unique part of a settlement that we arose in 2008 as a result of a technical audit that we conducted. Okay, so the fun stuff here is the PEG channels for the city, and the PEG channel that the city runs is channel 21, and it can be an important communication tool. For the city, we get to continue to use channel 21, and we still have channels 26 and 77. 26 is the educational access channel, 77 is the public access channel. There's a couple of nice provisions that are not seen in a lot of areas, at least not yet, in this area. So Renton really is on the cutting edge on these PEG provisions. One is the inclusion of a HD channel. So in addition to the 3 channels that we have, we'll also be able to simulcast our government channel in HD. And then we'll also be included on Comcast Electronic Programming Guide. And that's important because when people are, looking through their menu to see what's on TV, right now all they see is channel 21 and it'll say government access or something like that. And now it'll say, exactly what's on. It'll say, 7 o'clock, Renton City Council meeting, et cetera. So, and that'll be not only on the menu, but as you know, people are accessing TV in more and more different ways. They're accessing it through their tablets, their phones, their computers. All of those different platforms will have our programming information on there. Financial support for PEG will increase. Right now we're at 19 cents per subscriber per month. It will be increased to 35 cents per subscriber per month. That'll be important for the city to so it can accomplish its goals in getting the equipment necessary to provide the programming, good programming for city residents. There's provisions on enforcement. So there's a process that we have to follow when we find that Comcast is in violation of the cable franchise. There are liquidated damages or penalties for failing to comply with the franchise. There's provisions to terminate the franchise, and then there's some boilerplate kind of general municipal cable provisions in there at the end. With that, that is your high-level summary, maybe too much, but we're happy to take any questions that you may have, council members. And but at the end of the day, what we're asking for is approval of the new Comcast agreement. There is one change that I mentioned at the Committee of the Whole meeting. I think, is it right to bring it up
Yes.
now? So one of the names of the Comcast entities who will be the Comcast, or will be the franchise holder, has changed. And so it should read, instead of Comcast Communications Management LLC, it should read Comcast Cable Communications Management LLC. So when we were doing the final drafts, the cable, the word cable was dropped, so we need to add that back in. And with that, I think we're open for questions.
Thank you, Mike, appreciate that. Any questions from council that you missed at the Committee of the Whole? Okay, we have, do we have any correspondence?
No correspondence, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and I don't have anybody signed up to testify. Is there any department head or other that would like to come forward and testify on this public hearing? What's the wish of the
Mr.
council?
Mayor, move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, second by Mr. Prince, that the public hearing be closed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thanks, Mike. We appreciate all the years of representation and dogging this thing so that we have the best outcome that we could have. Pardon me. The council will be taking action on it a little later in the meeting, so.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to administrative report, Mr. Covington.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a couple of items. Again, this week, we have a couple of neighborhood picnics. Wednesday, the Victoria Park, Victoria Hills, and Talbot Hill neighborhoods have their combined annual picnic. That's at Thomas Teasdale Park, located at 601 South 23rd Street. And then Maple Ridge Estates Homeowners Association will have their picnic Thursday, the 21st, in their HOA area located at Southeast 156th Street and 140th Street Southeast. All the picnics are from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30. Residents and participants are encouraged to bring their favorite potluck dish and attend the picnic to get to know their immediate and surrounding neighbors and meet city representatives. I want to also announce coming up the week of September 8th for a couple of days, the right westbound lane on Maple Valley Highway, that's SR 169, will be closed to traffic for tree maintenance work. We'll have Asplin Tree Expert Company will be removing about 17 high-risk trees and pruning some low-hanging branches from 3 other trees. The lane will be closed between Southeast 5th Street and 405, so all traffic could be intermittently stopped to facilitate the tree removal. We'll do this hopefully after rush hour. We'll start about 9 a.m. and reopen the lanes a little bit after 3:30 p.m. each day. If folks have questions, they can contact Terry Flatley here at the city. He's our Urban Forestry and Natural Resources Manager. That's at 430-6600. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. And council, as you recall, pardon me, we had that tree come down during the storm, and so Public Works went out and checked all the most vulnerable trees that could actually hit cars and that were leaning in the wrong direction, and coupled with Terry Flatley and his expertise, we were able to determine which trees had to be removed. So that's what's going on out there. Okay, moving on to audience comment. We just have one person signed up, and Howard, you know the drill.
First I'll see. I think I pushed the green button.
Yes.
Let's see if it turns on.
Phil, you might have to do it one more time. There you go.
There we are. How do we clear that thing?
Just focus.
Great to me. All right. Howard McComber, live in the Renton Highlands. Have 3 items tonight. The first one's one you've heard ad infinitum, ad nauseum, and that is my great push for owner-occupied, low-cost housing in the Renton Highlands, because I think, along with Joe Biden, that the most effective, least expensive way of improving a residential area is to increase the owner occupancy in that area. And that's what we're trying to do. And we will need help from the council in order to do that. And you have the letters and stuff. I won't belabor that anymore, just another reminder that this is a way we can improve our Sunset area, which is home to us. Secondly, we have a charity auction on October the 2nd. We're having a gala auction that we're inviting the public to come. Also, anyone who'd like to contribute something of value. We're not looking for white elephant sales. This is something valuable for our silent auction. We'll be having a silent auction, and some people have contributed things for a live auction. Now, I know this group has provided tremendous support to Reach. Appreciate that. We have the Center of Hope downstairs. We have the Salvation Army, and providing a meal every night at 5:30. And anyone who knows someone who'd like a meal, for whatever reason, some people come down to our meals and it's not for the food. They come down for a little company, and that's excellent. So whatever it is, if you'd like to come to dinner, it's available, 5:30 to the Salvation Army, 7 days a week. We're also doing what's called Warm Up, which is a breakfast, free breakfast at the Harambee Center. It used to be the Eagles Club, but it's the Harambee Center on Southeast 3rd, and it's from 8 to 10. Now we only have that, now we have it for 3 days. We used to have just Monday and Wednesday. We have it on Thursday as well. The people who are there, the homeless guys, are actually, with a little bit of coaching from Marty, are actually doing that dinner. We provide, well, somebody provides the food, but we provide the food and they're producing it, and it works well so far, so we're going to keep that going. Our goal is to have 7 mornings a week where people can have a breakfast as well as a supper. These are our main push and reach, is reaching those who are the most vulnerable in the bottom economic strata of the city. So that's just our goal there. The third thing I bring up is sometimes a little controversial. It's because of the subject matter and because it's tainted with some emotion. And I was to Ed and Marcy's committee meeting, and we brought up the thing about medical marijuana. Now I want to explain medical marijuana to you if I can. It is an alternative medicine. It is not a recreational drug. It's like Jack Daniels as opposed to medical alcohol that we use in hospitals. They sound similar, they're not used for the same thing, and they're not interchangeable. It's a different entire thing. We don't have enough information out there in the public about medical marijuana. But medical marijuana is an alternative medicine, and as such, I think it should be regulated somewhat differently than recreational marijuana. I have no problem with taxing. We could tax the plants, we could do some taxing, but I think we need to keep it as open as we can so it's practiced as medicine. Now, we all know I have had some experience with cancer in my family, and that's one of those things. When we had cancer, the treatments for the cancer that were given to us was chemotherapy, because that's what's available now. Chemotherapy presupposes that cancer being more vigorous and growing faster, if you put poison in the system, the cancer cells will collect it faster, and it'll kill the cancer cells because it's poison, and it'll kill them faster than it does the normal cells. And it seems to be that way. The only problem is if it doesn't get all the cells, then you get a resistant strain of cancer that reappears. And then you knock it down with some chemo again, and it reappears. And the stuff in chemotherapy is horrible poison. It is really bad stuff. So that is the choices that we've had in the past. I'm using alternative myself for, I have it too. So it's just part of life. So you can look at different methods of medicine, and I think that the important part is to leave all options open for people as much as possible, that we don't regulate it out of existence, that we allow it to exist, and that we handle it that way. We treat it as medicine. It is medicine, and that's all there is to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Howard. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, we have 8 items for council consideration. Are there any items the council member would like pulled for discussion?
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, I move the consent agenda be adopted as presented.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that council adopt the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to unfinished business, Mr. Person.
Yes, I have a committee report.
Committee of the Whole Committee Report, adopt a franchise for Comcast to operate a cable communication system within the city of Renton. The Committee of the Whole considered recent citizen comments and concurs in the staff recommendation to extend Comcast cable television franchise with the city of Renton to enter into a new franchise agreement for 10 years. The new agreement includes changes to the sections relating to public education governmental, PEG provisions, and other franchise terms in Chapter 17, Cable Communication Systems, section of Title V of the franchise. The committee further recommends that the ordinance regarding this matter be presented for first and advanced to second and final reading. This is signed by the council president.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Person.
I move the committee report be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that council approve the Committee of the Whole Committee Report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, Ms. Palmer.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Corman.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Pavoni.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
And Mr. Prince.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, moving on to resolutions and ordinances. We have one ordinance for first reading, and then we have cable franchise.
Okay, the first ordinance for first reading, is regarding the donation of a vehicle to the Fire and Emergency Services Department. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, accepting the donation of a 1999 Ford RVC Mobile Communications Unit vehicle from the Renton Emergency Communications Service.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, the second ordinance regarding the franchise with Comcast, I'd like to point out that I did make the correction that Mr. Bradley spoke about, so it's in the title that I'm going to read. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Comcast Cable Communication Management, LLC, and Comcast Cable Holdings, LLC, to construct, maintain, operate, and repair a cable system to provide cable services in, across, over, along, under, upon, through, and below the public rights-of-way of the City of Renton, providing for severability and establishing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the ordinance be advanced to second and final reading this evening.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be advanced to second and final reading this evening. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, again, an ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Comcast Cable Communication Management, LLC, and Comcast Cable Holdings, LLC, to construct, maintain, operate, and repair a cable system to provide cable services in, across, over, along, under, upon, through, and below the public rights-of-way of the City of Renton, providing for the severability and establishing an effective date.
Mr.
You know,
Mayor.
I just had a vision. Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read and requires a roll call.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Mr. Pavoni?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All ayes.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much,
Mr.
Jason.
Mayor.
Yes, Ms.
Who would have
Palmer.
thought a utility ordinance would be the funniest one we've ever had?
That was pretty good. Again, thanks, Mike, for all your hard work on that. Okay, new business, Mr. Person.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, got several things to announce here. First of all, there'll be no council meeting next Monday, August 25th. It's a council holiday. There will be no council meeting on September 1st, Monday. It's a city holiday, it's Labor Day. And we'll finally meet back on September 8th. In the Committee of the Whole, we'll meet at 6 PM, and we'll be discussing emerging issues in public safety. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Palmer?
Yes, the Transportation Committee, which would normally meet on August 28th, which is a Thursday, has been canceled. And for Finance Chair Breyer, I will announce her meeting, which will be September 8th, 5 PM in the council conference room. 3 items on the agenda. The first one is 2014 second quarter budget amendment ordinance. Second is vouchers, and the third is emerging issues in revenue streams. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Corman?
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Pavoni?
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
All right, and Mr. Prince?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple items. The Planning and Development Committee meeting that would be held on August 28th has been canceled. And on Thursday, September 4th, the Planning and Development Committee will be meeting at 3 PM in the council conference room, and we'll be discussing medical marijuana zoning. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to audience comment. Was there anybody who didn't get a chance to address the council? What's the wish of the council?
Move the council meeting be adjourned.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, second by Mr. Prince, that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.